The Canada Revenue Agency, as you heard, insisted Brian Kirkham owed them over $139,000 after his late wife's RRSPs were transferred, a transfer that should have resulted in a neutral tax situation. It was a battle he had been fighting for years.
At what point is this going to get dealt with? At what point will they actually recognize what the problem is?
For close to 4 years, Brian Kirkham says he desperately tried to resolve a tax-related error with the Canada Revenue Agency. Back in 2016, Brian's wife Cheryl unexpectedly passed away. Her RRSPs were transferred to Brian's RRSPs as a spouse and beneficiary. It was supposed to be a seamless transition.
My wife passed away almost 5 years ago, and I'm still dealing with this stuff, and it shouldn't be. This is a routine thing.
Normally, the transfer of funds results in a neutral tax situation where no tax is payable. But the CRA insisted Brian owed income tax on those transferred RRSP funds of just under $240,000.
They assessed me tax on that total amount as if I'd received this income going into my bank account in my pocket to spend. And at the same time, they charged me a penalty on the RRSP contribution being over limit.
The retired banker says the CRA told him he owed close to $140,000 in taxes.
I was surprised. I was shocked. I was in finance for 38 years. I dealt with this all the time in my career. It's a routine transaction.
Brian says his accountants tried to reach out repeatedly to the CRA to resolve the situation, but got nowhere.
We didn't count. It's a big bureaucracy. I mean, to even try to phone into them, talk to somebody there, you get the runaround, and no one was paying attention. Nobody cared. That's how I felt. Nobody cared.
Making matters worse, Brian says he was contacted by the CRA Collections Department.
It terrified me. I mean, this is the government, and what's the next step? You know, if I'm not going to pay it, then they're going to do whatever they're going to do.
Desperate for help, Brian reached out to Consumer Matters.
I didn't know where to turn. That's when I came to you.
Consumer Matters reached out to the Canada Revenue Agency on Brian's behalf, explaining his case. A week and a half later, Brian received a phone call from the CRA telling him they had reviewed his file and resolved the issue.
They've reversed all of it, so we're now in that situation. It's all been cleared up.
For privacy reasons, the CRA couldn't give Consumer Matters any details, and Brian says he didn't get much of an explanation either. Still, he's relieved his tax nightmare is over, and he can move on with his life.
Just a sense of relief, and just thank God it's at the end. You know, I didn't know how I'd get out of this. I really don't. And again, thanks to your team and yourself, I can't say enough to thank you. It's a blessing.
Brian says consumers need to be very aware that this type of thing can happen. He says he's met other people who have found themselves in similar situations. His advice is to talk to your bank and make sure they are on top of everything. Just hope the process doesn't go sideways. And if you have a consumer issue for me, you can email me at consumermatters@globalnews.ca.